It was always called the Blight of Duluth. It had been neglected for many years.
The AC Hotel was originally constructed back in the 1800s, and altogether the AC Hotel I think had been vacant for about 20 years.
We were looking for a new site for the History Museum, and we wanted a location that was near where the history took place. This building was vacant right on the square, and we were able to acquire the building.
Some of the suggestions were to tear it down and to have a big box here because of its vicinity to the freeway and visibility. And when you tear down buildings like this that had so much history and such a big part of your community, it becomes out of sight, out of mind.
We started having people break in. It was a safety issue. It just became a great concern. And so one day I had had enough. I called to make a complaint, and what I found out was that the building was actually for sale and it was being assumed by the bank.
And in 2003, the property came up for sale, and I ended up buying the property and spending the next number of years trying to get a development for it, knowing that there's many hurdles with especially the environmental portion of it.
That was one of the first things we had to do, basically, was check for the environmental problems that were in the building. It was over 100 years old, and it had been vacant for several years before we acquired it.
So when I first purchased the building, I did know that there were tax credits. I was aware of Brownfields because I knew the building had lead and asbestos. So I'd started down that avenue.
Well, the EPA came in originally, and they helped with some of the funding for some of the initial testing to tell what we really had here. Having been an industrial site for 120 plus years of heavy machinery manufacturing, you could just imagine everything that was here.
Lots of asbestos, lots of lead paint.
We had railroad tracks that came into the buildings, oils that were here, so there was a lot of issues that we had on the environmental side, but with the testing, we were able to tell what it was. And
they were able to locate all that and abate all of it. So it was a huge first step for us to be able to begin the renovations.
So the EPA worked with us through the city in order to do brownfield cleanup. We were able to secure brownfield grants as well as CDBG funds.
We knew what was ahead of us, and it was pretty substantial, but we were able to get some of the help that was needed to direct us in the way to get us a clean bill of health, which we have. The MPCA gave us a no further action letter, so we did take care of all the environmental issues.
We worked through the city to get in touch with the EPA and the Brownfields. But it was about a 12-year project trying to get it renovated and get the museum built inside of it.
And then once there was momentum, we began to see other investors helping us make this possible. We were able to restore the 10 ceilings that were added in 1906. That was a big thing for me in order to preserve history, but that also meant it was expensive and we didn't have the funds to do it. So I wouldn't be standing in this building today if it wasn't for the Brownfield funds and the commitment of the EPA to help us restore buildings.
So we had to cut out probably a dozen entryways on the different floors between the two buildings. We had completely replaced all the HVAC, electrical, plumbing, so it was a complete redo of the inside of the building. Big project.
The buildings were, as you can see, you could tell that they had great potential, but they were in tremendously rough shape.
I think that the most exciting part of seeing these buildings come back is just seeing the before and after transformation on them. A lot of times whenever you see these historic structures, not only here but around the country, they've been unused or misused for quite a long time. And to see the process, usually from anywhere from like 1 to 2 years, to bring them back to their original state with updates to make them more usable for our today's activities is really great and a highlight.
But again, the EPA was actually the first believers in what we were trying to do out here, so that was something I'll always remember.
Duluth has been fortunate to have the support of the US EPA as we've sought to look at redevelopment sites within our community. We have a really large number of sites that have levels of contamination or other impacts that are resulting from deindustrialization where with the support of programs like the Brownfields program, we are able to achieve redevelopment in a much quicker and more appropriate way. And what's been really critical about it is that we've been able to meet the city's goals in ways that we weren't otherwise capable of doing on our own. The support of this program has allowed us to leverage other private dollars and private investment that we would not have successfully been able to do without some of the really critical analysis that's happened as part of that Brownfields program review.
I would like to encourage all communities, big and small, to get involved with brownfield redevelopment within their community. I think it's a program that the EPA stands behind, and I think it's a program that you can really see the results in a meaningful and sustainable way. The EPA Brownfield program is able to keep your city's history alive by reusing those empty buildings and turning them back into functioning spaces for people to live and work in. Altogether, I think it's a lot more cost efficient to reuse our old buildings. It helps to keep our history alive, and it shows that we are important as a community by using what we already have.
When we started on the Clyde project, we had a talented team that was trying to figure out what to do with a fairly large complex that had lots of difficult buildings, difficult things in the soil. We wanted to figure out exactly how a partnership could be crafted that would allow that to move forward in an effective way. And so Alex was able to leverage his capable team to figure out how to best reuse buildings to retain some of Duluth's industrial infrastructure that is really going to be pivotal in that part of the city.
I think maybe other individuals who are in my shoes get a little anxious. Is working with the government going to cause more work? Are they going to uncover something that makes my project not affordable? And instead, it was an amazing process. Working with the city, they really helped us through the entire work. It did take extra months because we were able to do it right, and I think that's what's so important. Had we not had the EPA involved, people might have cut corners, and we wouldn't have a building that we can be confident that the lead, the asbestos, is not something that can harm someone that we're taking care of.